Welcome to the TK Show with the Athletic Bay Area's Editor-in-Chief, Tim Kawakami.
Hey everybody, Tim Kawakami here, TK Show, recording for odd reasons at Warriors headquarters. Again, the Warriors are not actually practicing, so we've gotten a couple quizzical looks from people in the hallway here, but that's the way we roll. We got some Oakland business to take care of, so we're doing it, and we're knocking out the TK Show. Why not? With my special guest, my friend, someone who you all know from his 49ers coverage of the Sacramento Bee, the one, the only, Matt Barrows. Matt, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, TK. How are you?
I know. I hear you might be struggling with a little cold. So I thank you for fighting through it, gutting through it like the tiger I know you are. So I appreciate.
I'm fighting it like a bear cat, Tim. This cold is not going to ruin me. I'm going to ruin the cold.
It's draft season. Barrows goes down for nothing. Hey, obviously the issue of the last few weeks has been Reuben Foster, the 49ers linebacker who was arrested in a domestic violence incident back in February, and I think to the surprise of the 49ers for sure, and many of us who've been covering this, the surprise of us, Santa Clara County District Attorney files 3 counts of felony charges involved in that incident. There was also a weapons charge that I guess was pushed back. I didn't quite understand. Or was it dropped yesterday?
There was a misdemeanor ammunition charge that I didn't even know about. It wasn't in the news release, the initial news release from last week. But apparently, there's a court case going on in San Diego, a federal case that's put an injunction on enforcing some of the ammunition and gun laws in the state, and so that ammunition misdemeanor that he also was facing is part of that injunction. So that charge has been dropped. So, but it's still the 3 major felonies that were reported last week that he's facing.
Okay, and yesterday the 49ers put out a statement with Jed York, Kyle Shanahan, and John Lynch's name all in the headline, which was notable since their name wasn't on the previous statement. None of their names, saying that Reuben Foster will not take part at the beginning of team activities in the offseason, which started yesterday. I don't think that's a big surprise, but it was a statement. Man, I'll just say, I've been writing, others are writing, that it certainly seems like the 49ers were really surprised by the felony charges being filed. Is that your sense of it, and where do you think their mindset is right now with Reuben Foster?
Yeah, I do think that they were surprised by it. They did their own investigation. They obviously, are in contact with Foster's legal team, and there were things that they came up with that they thought would sort of soften the blow. The DA did not see it that way. The DA had, basically the same information that the 49ers did, and they still came with the 3 big felony charges. So that's why we're headed to trial on this. It's because the DA and the defense don't see eye to eye on any of this stuff. So, that's why we're going to be heading to a court case, which, I was speaking to people yesterday about this. If all went as scheduled, we would be doing jury selection on July 27th. So basically, the same time that the 49ers are reporting for training camp is when the trial essentially starts in this case. Now, that could and usually does get pushed back because of delays and requests from the defense. The question is whether the defense, knowing that it behooves Foster to have this done before the regular season begins, tries to be as speedy with it as possible. So it's sort of an interesting timeline for when all this should come to pass.
With the statement that they issued yesterday, it would basically seem to imply that Foster may not be in team activities while this goes through the legal system. I didn't exactly say that, but it certainly seemed to be implied by that. We've all seen cases like this take, maybe a year to get to trial as the defense asks for new evidence or investigation. And certainly they seem to be surprised by the filing on Friday. Could you see this? If is this the 49ers stance? As long as it's in the courts, it isn't dismissed. This is pursuing through the thing, even if it's delayed. Reuben Foster isn't going to be part of the team in any official way.
Well, that's definitely something to ask John Lynch this week. He's going to hold his annual, pre-draft press conference. I guarantee you, if that's not the first question, it'll be the second question. The precedent that this team has, and obviously Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch weren't part of this at this time, but back in 2015, Bruce Miller was arrested for a domestic dispute, allegedly shoved his girlfriend out of the car and smashed her cell phone, and the 49ers action at that point was to make Miller stay away from the facility. So basically the same thing that they're doing now with Reuben Foster. And Miller did not come back to the 49ers until his case was resolved. It eventually was, the charge was reduced to, I think, vandalism, and they did a plea bargain for disturbing the peace. So it was resolved, I want to say, in June of that year, and he was back for the mini camp that's held that month. So that's the only thing that we have to go on this at this point. But it's a great question. I mean, is Reuben Foster supposed to be away from the facility, away from team meetings, all that stuff until this is resolved? Because you're right, that could be August, that could be September, that could be well into the regular season, and who knows what the resolution ultimately will be.
Do you get the sense that they're still supporting Foster, as much as they were before the felony charges? Does this give them pause, behind the scenes? Where are they at, just kind of generally, with Reuben Foster?
I feel like that the information they have, the same information they have that made them think that the ultimate charges were going to be a little bit softer than they were. They still have that, and that's what they feel like will allow Foster to get out from underneath these charges. But like you noted, I mean, they were surprised by the severity, the heinous nature of the charges. So I think they're proceeding, certainly in terms of free agency and the draft, as if they can't rely on him, as if they don't really know what's going to happen, and they don't. So it's really their only move. But as far as the draft is concerned, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they took a middle linebacker with their first pick. And I would say that that's the betting line right now. The smart money is on them taking either Roquan Smith from Georgia or Tremaine Edmonds from Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I'll ask you certainly get into that more, but we're talking. This is something like the NFL is still sitting there with a very likely or potential suspension on top of the legal system. Do you think it'd be? I mean, it's not for you to advise the 49ers, but I'm going to ask you: should they just sort of say, okay, Reuben Foster may not be, and maybe probably isn't going to be on the field for the 49ers very much or at all in 2018?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at him, if you're the 49ers, as a bonus. I mean, maybe you get a few games from him this year. I mean, I think you're even wondering about 2019 and beyond. Wow. I mean, these are charges that bring as much as 10 years and 8 months in state prison if he's convicted of them. That's the maximum sentence. It probably wouldn't ever be that much, but we're talking jail time here. So, that's something that they have to be considering right now. So as far as 2018 is concerned, and you haven't even brought up the misdemeanor drug charge in Alabama. I mean, that would be part of an NFL suspension as well. Like I said, I mean, getting Reuben Foster on the field, that would just be a bonus at this point. They've got to operate as if he's not going to be there for 16 games this season.
What would it take for them to cut him at this point, Matt? Would it take him being found guilty? Is that just the ultimate threshold here? Because he's like a felony counts charge against him, and they kept him on the team. Is it going to take this going through all the way through the process and him actually being found guilty, being let off in cuffs for the 49ers to release Reuben Foster?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that or that there's some smoking gun that nobody knows about. That they realize that he wasn't honest with them initially. I don't think that's the case. It seems as if they're sort of married to this tack that they've taken, which is to essentially allow the legal system to make their ultimate decision on Reuben Foster.
Is this John Lynch's call? I think it should be. You think it's John Lynch's call?
Yeah, I think it's everything is ultimately Jed's call. I think he's leaning on Lynch and his guidance and how he is seeing this. So I think it's sort of the same. I mean, if Jed York or Denise York, DeBartolo York decided we can't have this anymore, then John Lynch has no other recourse but to cut him. But they seem to be relying on his judgment in this case to this point.
We're going to take a quick break for a word from our friends at Hims, a new wellness brand for men. Is that hairline slowly starting to move backwards? I know some of you Warriors fans have used that line when talking about a certain Eastern Conference rival, but it's not funny when it starts happening to you. 66% of men lose their hair by age 35. Thing is, when you start to notice hair loss, it's too late. It's easier to keep the hair you have than to replace the hair you've lost. Do you want your hairline to recede, or do you want to do something about it? Luckily, we've got a solution for you. forhims.com, a one-stop shop for hair loss and more for men. Thanks to science, baldness can be optional. Hims connects you with real doctors and medical-grade solutions to treat hair loss. No weird snake oil pills or gas station counter supplements. These prescription solutions are backed by science. Save hours by going to forhims.com. It's so easy. Answer a few quick questions, a doctor will review and prescribe you products, and they are shipped directly to your door. Now is your chance to order. TK's listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 while supplies last. See website for full details. This would cost hundreds of dollars if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy. So go to forhims.com/TK. That's forhims.com/TK. forhims.com/TK. Now back to the TK show.
Well, let's talk about the draft. You mentioned Roquan Smith, and it just does seem like they might have taken him. I mean, that just might be the natural slot for him. Number 9 feels like where he could go anyway. Were you feeling that way even before the felony development with Reuben Foster, or were you okay? Maybe they have to take him because of Reuben Foster's situation.
Yeah, I think that they were. He was a strong consideration. Leading up to this, I think it's even stronger now. They set up all of these visits and whatnot. In late February and March. So. Roquan Smith has been coming in. He's here today visiting with the team, and I'm sure they're going to meet with everybody who's a consideration at that number 9 pick. All those visits were set up months ago, so they were looking in this direction even before Thursday's news from the district attorney. Again, because you can't rely on Reuben Foster. One thing that we haven't discussed is that if he has one more slip up, also he's out of here. All of these things. This is Reuben Foster's last year. This all happened within a calendar year. He failed a drug test at the combine. He was kicked out of the combine for an altercation with a hospital technician. He had a bizarre incident with Ray Armstrong at a club in San Francisco called Love and Propaganda. The police report did not match what he said afterwards. There were guns involved, a run down the street, etc. It was not anything that you want your first-round linebacker to be a part of. Then he gets busted in Alabama for marijuana possession, and then the big one is this domestic violence issue in February in Los Gatos. That all happened within 11 months. Yeah. So the likelihood, given that, of him slipping up again seems pretty high. So that also could trigger the end of the Reuben Foster era with the 49ers.
How risky is this for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan? We talk about all the problems they had with players under the previous regime. You had so much positivity, clearly after they traded for Garoppolo, but there's positivity before that. Different atmosphere, different culture. John Lynch and Shanahan, I'll put him in there. Obviously, same owner, Jed York. Are they in jeopardy of losing some credibility here that they had built back up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the previous regime. Look at all the credibility that Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke had built up in 2011 and 2012. The team was back in the playoffs. They were, a contender every year for the Super Bowl. And then, Alden Smith stuff happens and keeps happening. Ray McDonald happens and keeps happening. Bruce Miller, we've already mentioned, that turned out badly. Nothing, sullies some great seasons like off the field stuff, and that's exactly what happened here. The 49ers were just riding high on Jimmy Garoppolo and had just signed him to a new deal when when the Reuben Foster stuff came in and just totally tanked all of the elation and good vibrations that were coming out of the organization. And it's something to discuss now because they're looking at some guys in the draft who did not, or we should say, have red flags draped all over them. Spending a lot of time with Arden Key, a pass rusher from LSU who has character concerns. I would think that this Reuben Foster situation means that they cannot take any risks at any point in the draft on any of these guys who have some red flags attached to them.
Oh, in more positive news, I would guess, they announced not announced. There is a report that Joe Staley has agreed to a new deal, upping his salary. I guess no surprise to you. Would you imagine this is it, the 2-year deal, Joe? This is kind of the end of the run, but it's going to be at a much higher number, and while he's playing pretty well.
Yeah, and I think that's why they reworked the contract, is because they had written it a few years ago that he would have 2 more years at a smaller salary, thinking that his career would be coming to an end. But it may be, but he's still playing at a very high level. I think he was scheduled to be the 22nd highest paid tackle in the NFL this upcoming season. He's not playing like it. He's still playing like a top 5, top 3 tackle, and deserves to be paid that way. So I think that's why they went ahead and did this. He's an interesting guy. I mean, he's a guy that early in his career decided he was playing at a time when a starting NFL tackle had to be 325 pounds or heavier. And he decided, he was really one of the first guys that came to this conclusion. He said, you know what? I don't feel like I need to be this heavy. I'm going to drop down to 300 pounds. And sometimes, at some points in the season, he's under 300.
Yep.
And you see more and more guys doing this now with a bigger emphasis on quickness and foot speed and whatnot. But my point is, I wonder whether that's added a couple of years to the end of his career. You saw Joe Thomas, a big guy, drafted the same year as Joe Staley, retire earlier this year. I think Joe Staley will have the option in 2 years to continue if he wants to. I mean, there's no reason physically that he needs to retire. He's had some knee issues, some shoulder issues, but for a guy who's been in the league as long as he has, playing the position he has, he's he's done pretty well for himself as far as longevity and body wise.
Well, I'll tell you, when I knew he was going to be here for sure next season, whether or not it was going to be a new deal, is when he came back. Wasn't that face injury? He comes back to play when you thought he might be out for the year, and to block Beathard's blind side in their first victory of the season. Those are important things in an NFL locker room. Those are important things to a new head coach who hadn't won yet. To have their veteran left tackle who had been through so many things say, you know what, I could have sit out this game. I could sit out a bunch of games. I'm going to play this game because I want to be with this team. And I want to be with this coach. I think that meant a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you, and we probably should have played that up more when it happened. He was originally scheduled to miss 3 or 4 weeks with it. I mean, he had a broken face. A Philadelphia Eagles lineman basically punched him in his face, and it broke his eye socket. And he ended up missing 1 game. I think the bye week occurred over that span, and that probably helped him out. But you're right. I mean, that's exactly what you want to see if you're Kyle Shanahan, and it is certainly something you want to see from your longest tenured player, because it sends a signal to everybody else that you got to gut up and get back on the field.
Well, a few other things were happening. If I remember, there was a trade right around in there too. So I think there are a lot of things going on with the 49ers franchise. We've done this whole thing, and I haven't mentioned that guy's name once yet. So I will now figure out a way to get Jimmy Garoppolo's name into this. What do you think he's thinking about? He comes to his team, everything's good. Now the Reuben Foster thing's a little weird. But he has signed the big contract. Is Jimmy Garoppolo the leader of that locker room just because he has to be right now?
Well, I mean, if you look at his salary and then the next highest salary, it's a steep incline between the two.
Yeah,
so
who is the next highest? Who is the next highest paid? I don't know, would it be Staley now? I can't even think right now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look at Staley's numbers. It might be him. It might be Weston Richburg, the other free agent addition that they brought in. Malcolm Smith is up there too. So that's something to watch as far as what the 49ers do in the draft. But I mean, the salary he makes, the position he plays, Garoppolo is very much the guy here, and that's sort of the next thing. I mean, how does he embrace this? I mean, he's gotten to watch Tom Brady do it for 4 years, and I'm sure that's going to be his prototype for doing this. But with being the franchise quarterback in a region, you come to symbolize that area. I mean, you see Drew Brees; he's Mr. New Orleans, et cetera, et cetera. It'll be interesting to see how Jimmy Garoppolo sort of handles that other baggage that comes with being the franchise quarterback. I think this offseason he's very much dedicated to basically learning the system. He maybe learned half of it last year. I don't know what percentage he would say that they learned, but it certainly wasn't the full playbook and the full offense that Kyle Shanahan runs. So that's his number one priority. I'm sure you and everybody else has been clamoring for interviews with him, and he's turned them all down because he wants to keep his head down and basically learn all those things that he wasn't able to when he came in on, what was it, October 30 last year.
I'll throw this one at you because I suggested an idea to John Middlecoff to write for us. Rob Gronkowski, who knows what's going on with him and the Patriots. The 49ers have a former Patriot quarterback. I don't know what the Patriots are going to do, but we have seen them make surprise trades many, many, many times when there was maybe a contractual issue, maybe some other thing. If you're the 49ers, did you make a call on Rob Gronkowski?
I don't think so. I mean, this is a guy who has wavered on whether he wants to continue playing in the NFL. I mean, if you're getting Rob Gronkowski at the top of Rob Gronkowski's game, absolutely. But I think the 49ers are still in building mode. They still are in let's get the locker room right mode, and bringing in somebody who's at the tail end of his career, probably not exactly what they want to be doing right now. But I mean, talk about fixing your red zone issues. That was one thing that even Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't really able to remedy last year. A big tight end could really help you in that regard. So it's something that's worth considering. I don't think the 49ers were ever in on the Jimmy Graham free agency. Yeah. So to me, that signals that maybe that's not a huge priority for them.
It goes sort of to the whole Shanahan thing. It's like he just figures he gets receivers open, right? I mean, they didn't go for a number one receiver either. His system gets guys open, and guys got open. So I mean, it's hard to criticize that. Look at what Marquise Goodwin turned into at the end of the season when Garoppolo was there. So maybe this fixation on big names at receiver and tight end isn't ever going to be the way Shanahan's going to go with this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'd be very surprised if they took one early in the draft. And you're right. I mean, it wasn't just Goodwin. It was Trent Taylor, and it was Garrett Selleck, and George Kittle, and Garoppolo and Pierre Garçon never got to work together. So that's essentially a new receiver for a new good proven receiver for Jimmy Garoppolo to work with once OTAs and practices begin in Santa Clara.
All right, Matt Barrows. I believe I've asked you this before when you've been on the show, but I'll ask you again because I'm just so curious. Matt Barrows, what's your favorite restaurant?
Well, I mean, you look at Matt Barrows' physique, and you say, well, that's a guy that knows how to eat. He probably knows a lot of great restaurants around the area. I think I've given you this one before. It's a Cuban restaurant in San Jose on Race Street. It's right there on basically the corner of San Carlos and Race Street, and it's authentic stuff. I mean, it's really, really good food. You order your pork lechon there, and they give you one serving. And for me, it lasts like 3 or 4 days because the servings are so huge. So that's my go-to spot. Always good quality, great price, and a lot of food.
And 3 meals for the price of one.
And 3 meals. You're basically getting 3 meals, and then you can use the pork for your sandwiches during the week.
Although, Barrow-sized meal, so it might be like one for other people, but
Bob Podecki probably isn't getting the same number of meals out of it as I am.
It's the first course for other people. But all right, Matt. Listen, as always, appreciate it. Good talking to you. I am sure I will see. We'll see if I'm invited to the John Lynch pre-draft. That is going to be a barometer for me. I think they might. I
think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, but they haven't announced.
I haven't gotten my invite yet, but I believe it's forthcoming.
Well, we'll see, because you know what? In the previous regime, sometimes try to do those, only beat writers availabilities for a general manager who hated the media. John Lynch does not hate the media, so it'll be interesting to me to see if they try to slip this one in and do it a little bit on the sly. I am always curious about those things. I never rip them for it so much, but I always note it if they try to pull something like that. We shall see.
Well, this is a lot of bang for your buck day. They're doing the local pro day, which means like all the Stanford guys and Cal guys are here. They're doing, a few veteran players who have reported for the off-season program, and they're doing John Lynch. So it's a lot sort of smushed into one day, which I don't always love, but you can understand why they're doing it this way.
Yep. All right, Matty. Probably will see you very soon. Thanks a lot for doing the show.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, everybody. That's TK Show for today. Thank you very much.